Welcome to the Week in Mobile, episode number 10, recorded Sunday, March 27th, 2011. The $41 million bet. In this episode, is Android really open source? Will the Playbook make a splash with Android developers? And where would you spend $41 million? Angry Birds or Color? All this and more coming up on the Week in Mobile. It's time for the Week in Mobile, episode number 10. Number 10. Double digits. I don't know what that means, but double digits. Run away, run away. My name is Rob Woodbridge. I'm one of your hosts of the Week in Mobile. With me in one of the quadrants, up left, back from the dead, I believe back from the dead. It's one Anthony Risk from Zebu Mobile at zebu.com, author of Beginning BlackBerry Development. Anthony, welcome back. We missed you last week.
Hey, it's really, really good to be back.
Out of bed and feeling good. So we anticipate that there's going to be, you're full of energy and full of zest, and there's lots to discuss this week. Right beside him and right above me is Jeff Bacon, the purveyor of all things mobile in the world of bitheads. Bacon, how are things?
Doing good, doing good.
Well, I'm glad to hear. It's a week 2 in the job. You ready to leave again, become a man of leisure?
We're like week 4 on the job now. Oh. So it's now it's getting routine. Right?
Now it's getting routine. Well, now you need a vacation or something like that after taking.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I'm taking next weekend to go to the Jays games. I need this vacation from a month.
The Jays game. That's no vacation, man. That's just pure frustration. Jump over to the dark side. Become a Yankees fan. It's easier.
Yeah, well, we should get a sports podcast going. We could debate those two teams.
That's the next thing. Forget this mobile. It's got to be. It's baseball season. This time next weekend, it will be opening day. Greatest day every year. That second to the fact when our local canal closes and it signifies the end of winter. My 2 favorite days of the year. This is episode number 10. We have had a heck of a week. Just to remind you that what we do here is we take some of the stories, the most important stories that happened in the last week in mobile, and we bang them out, we draw them out, we drag them out, we drag them through the mud, we talk about them forever until there's nothing left to talk about, and then we talk about it some more. These are the most important stories that we all think are weighing down or helping this industry, and this week was certainly full of them, chock full of these stories. And the first one I want to bring up is a story that we've touched on a little bit, of course, because we're a little bit ahead of everybody else when it comes to the mobile industry, right? Visionaries, right?
Way ahead.
Yeah. We're
light years ahead of everybody else.
Light years ahead of that. We just can't. We don't invent these stories. They just come up. We just pick them out early. This whole garbage about Android and Honeycomb being open source. This is something that we've talked about before, that it is in fact really not what you would consider true open source, especially with Honeycomb. You guys read these articles. What they're saying basically is that Google or Android is going to hold back Honeycomb from the development community for months, they say, before it becomes released as an open source. And the reason they want to do this is they don't want you and any developer or any handset manufacturer to bastardize and destroy Honeycomb. Isn't that funny?
It's interesting, right? So it's open source was a really big thing about Android when it first came out. I think part of it because they needed developer mindshare, and a way to get a lot of the leading edge developers is to do open source because they get to play around and tinker with everything. They get to run the latest and greatest mods and hacks and things, and that's what some of the really early adopters of Android loved. That there were community mods, you could do all kinds of things. But I don't know, now it's getting to the point where maybe it's become mainstream, right? Last year, it turned the corner, became the biggest smartphone OS, and maybe being mainstream now, they I don't know, are they sold out? Maybe lost touch with the roots?
I mean, they're trying to prevent the J2ME style fragmentation that happened with Sun's Java, right? In which they have a platform that was distributed across so many manufacturers with so loose specifications that even though it was a standard, it still wasn't standard across all implementations because the minimum requirements still provided enough variation that your app didn't necessarily run on them all. So Google's trying to recognize the fact that as Android explodes, there's a strong possibility of people going in and making changes to Android, which means that your app doesn't run on all Android 3 devices or doesn't run on all 2.3 devices. And that would be not a crippling blow, but it would certainly mean that suddenly Android fragmentation that non-mobile developers are coming across and seeing as a big issue, and mobile developers as well, but suddenly becomes a gating issue to a lot of developers entering the space because that you really just don't want to deal with that kind of a fragmented market. So I think it's a sign that what Apple did was start way more closed and then close up even further over time in their ecosystem, and Google started way open and is starting to close a few of the holes that some people would define as completely open. Whether it changes whether you define it as open or not, I'm not sure, but I think it does show that as the market matures, any ecosystem that wants to be healthy needs to have some limits on it, because a completely unlimited open market may be not so good for consumers and developers alike.
That goes against everything that that Google or Android stood for in its early release, though, doesn't it?
Well, it's kind of it's interesting. Like you have to look at the different. So what you said, I mean, like that it could, you don't want the fragmentation. But I was thinking as you said that, like, what are the different motivations at play here, like by the different stakeholders. Like, so Google really, they don't make any money directly off Android. They just want an open enough ecosystem that no one's gonna, like, that Apple or someone is not going to shut them out of the mobile space and the mobile advertising space. But the handset manufacturers, they want, why, like, is there a big risk of a handset manufacturer going altering Android? Now they could if it's open source, obviously altering it. Do they not believe that that's going to ultimately kill the Android ecosystem? I guess that's the problem, right? Like short term, it'll be fine if different versions, but long term, if the viability of the platform suffers, that's why they wouldn't want to do that.
Well, Rubin says, who's Andy Rubin, who's the head of the Android group, and he's the VP of engineering at Google, says that, and I quote here, to make our schedule to ship the tablet OS, obviously Honeycomb, we made some design trade-offs. We didn't want to think about what it would take for the same software to run on phones. It would have required a lot of additional resources and extended our schedules beyond what we thought was reasonable. So we took a shortcut. So they took a shortcut by really cutting out the ability to modify this. So they're talking about months. And they really didn't want to. He continues to say he doesn't want to. They didn't want him to. They wanted to prevent developers from putting the software on phones and creating a really bad user experience. They have no idea even if it even works on phones. Right. So
that could sort of make sense.
Yep.
Well,
that sort of makes sense. Like that's a. Oh, go ahead.
So I was going to say, if you look at what happened with Windows Mobile before Windows Phone 7. It kind of stagnated a bit, and manufacturers started to make customizations on top of Windows Mobile, HTC being the most prominent example, who created a new UI for as much of the OS as they could, which basically sold their devices and brought HTC as a brand into the consciousness of at least in the North American market. So, Google has about a third of the market in North America with effectively about 5 manufacturers. They have more than that, but the reality is, Motorola, HTC, Samsung. I don't even know what the next 2 biggest ones would be, but 3 to 5 manufacturers eating up the vast majority of that market share, that third of the market share. So I think they also kind of realize right now, they don't want 17 smaller manufacturers making changes or trying to cram this OS onto another device that it wasn't really designed for, and having a bunch of people report that these Android devices suck, when in reality they don't need 17 more manufacturers, because they got buy-in from the big 3, 4, 5 manufacturers, and they can start having the market share that they were going for without having 100 different manufacturers using Android.
So another big story that happened this week around Google, I don't think that this was unexpected, was they actually started rolling out to some testers in-app purchasing, which is a long time due. RIM just integrated in-app purchasing, and we thought, wow, these guys are so late to the game. But Android, talk about being late. But they've just started to roll it out. It should be starting to be rolled out to the general population next week or this coming week. Is this a big thing for Google? Does it, this is going to be? Is this going to cement them in the revenue generating category?
Well, it's actually, I'll let Jeff lead on. This is totally your area.
I think it's a bigger deal for Google in terms of ramping up revenue than it was for RIM, because RIM had a strong market in paid applications, where the Android market's application downloads are by far dominated by freemium. They're free apps, not even necessarily freemium right now. I think it was like 67% or something of all downloads off of Google Store are free downloads. So,
and the other 33%, sorry, are malware.
Yeah.
So,
paid malware, actually.
Paid malware.
Exactly. So I think it's going to make a big difference on the Android market in terms of seeing the revenue numbers ramp up. That chart that was released a couple of months ago, comparing the 3 or 4 app stores on there, and the revenue in Android was at the bottom. I think this will aggregate a lot more revenue under the Google Android banner, even though now some people are making money off of freemium titles on Android just using their own in-app purchasing designs. Having Google release it is certainly going to make that easier for everybody to implement, and I think you'll see a big swath of free apps go freemium or start adding in-app purchasing versus just advertising revenue in it.
This really legitimizes the marketplace, doesn't it?
For sure.
I think it brings it more to parity, I think, because I think Apple legitimized the idea of in-app purchasing as a revenue stream, because you see lots of top grossing apps that are free and you just buy stuff, with the whole exception of the whole Smurfs thing, with kids buying barrelfuls of Smurf berries, which they did fix in 4.3, which is kind of cool. But I would really be interested if there's any data. I mean, personally, as the owner of an apps company, of like how much money people are making from in-app purchasing, the free within app versus like a freemium model versus a paid model. But I don't know if that information is actually out there available anywhere. But that would be really, really interesting to see. Like, what are the different things? Like, how the dynamics of these models work? What percentage of free users will actually buy something? All that kind of stuff. But I think it opens up an additional revenue stream, and it's something certainly, like Zeebo doesn't do this yet, but it's something we're exploring and probably going to do at some point soon. You do
it in the app. You do it in BlackBerry, in the BlackBerry app world.
We
right?
can. We don't do in-app purchases yet.
Okay.
We're sort of set up to, but we haven't done that yet. But we do the freemium.
Product is going to be Zeebo berries that you're going to sell to people.
That's exactly it. We gotta
exploit the loopholes.
That's it. Look, so Smurfs made their appearance on BlackBerry App World this week.
So this is really not a big story, other than the fact that it's finally here. It's not innovative. It's just it just kind of brings the Google or the Android marketplace up to parity with the other two major stores. Is that how you guys look at this?
Yeah, I think that in-app purchasing longer term, I think we still have to see what the impact on the app world is. You're just in the past, say, 6 months, you've really seen a big impact in Apple, but I think you're going to see more. It's going to have it could potentially have a big impact on app developers. Just because it's on all three stores, it's just a bigger impact.
Yeah, I think it is just you can look at it as just like a checkbox in terms of being up to parity, but I think the impact of that checkbox for Android could be a lot larger than other platforms, just because of the type of market demographics in terms of app styles that are on the store being so heavily weighted towards free, that adding monetization options for free should have a higher impact on the Android market than it has had on BlackBerry, for example.
You know what I'm thinking, though? Like, think about the user experience here, right? So I think Apple people buy a lot of apps because it's really, really easy, because you pretty much have an iTunes account with a credit card by the time you've activated your iPhone. So it's just a matter of typing in a password. But think about the difference between, for Android, you're going to have to, and an in-app purchase, you're going to have to click on, buy Smurf berries. And then if you don't have a credit card, you're going to actually have to go through this stupid setup process where you got your Google account, because you need that with Android. But you're going to have to go through, and you're going to have to enter your credit card info and some dialogue, and it's probably going to be like 6 screens before you can buy your little things. I don't know. I wonder.
It's not as, because they're using the Google checkout, right?
Yeah, when Google checkout it's fine. It works well. But the problem is, Apple's advantage is that you're pretty much, like 90% probably of owners of iPhones probably have already given Apple their credit card number. They're already set up, so it's just a password. And that's the thing. Like, Apple does all the setup up front, and that's their big advantage. RIM has the same problem, that you can have a BlackBerry, But then to buy something on Apple, you can have App World installed. To buy something, you got to go through the setup.
It's a different. That's a different question because what Apple's done very well, especially with iTunes, is that walk into any grocery store, any 7-Eleven or convenience store or corner store, any Home Depot, any major brand, any retailer, and what do you see on the shelves right by the checkout, right? iTunes gift cards. I don't see the Google checkout gift cards. I don't see anything along those lines. So when it comes to merchandising, you're right. Accessibility is one thing. Already having your credit card installed and using iTunes and all that stuff that makes iTunes so addictive for everybody to be able to, and so convenient to purchase, it works against Google here because Google sucks at this stuff. They're just Google checkout is not. It might be great, but their reach is not great. And they're about to, the rumors are they're going to roll out a music service, which is logical, and a social network, which is logical. But they suck at customer experience and marketing. I mean, that's where Apple wins.
That's it, because Apple built a multi-billion-dollar online store before coming out with the iPhone, right? Yeah. Before the iPhone even appeared. They had a multi-billion-dollar online store with like 100 million users with credit cards who were buying all kinds of stuff. And then they just stuck iPhone in there, and that's been why their big advantage, and that's the problem with. So, you have to iTunes. The software, honestly, it's a big bloated mess, but everyone's using it, so you're already in there, right? And that's the difference between BlackBerry and Google and Apple. That Apple is already it's commerce first, and then you've got your phone up on top of that.
Yeah, but they all have the similar in terms of having an account. Apple had the advantage of people already having accounts. But on BlackBerry App World, the first time you run it, you need a password and email address, and after that, all you do is type the password in from then on, once you associate your payment details for it. On the Google checkout, once you create your account once, you will have a similar, enter your password, because it should save your details in a saved storage. So when you open it up on a mass scale and say, okay, for an individual app, getting someone to create an account is a headache. But when you look at it on a mass scale and say there's 200,000 apps asking for people to create an account, then suddenly the account creation ratio is a lot higher, because someone will find an app that's worth doing it, and once they do it in the app that's worth doing it, they'll be able to use it in the other ones.
Oh yeah, I agree. But and I totally agree. I mean, once you've done it once, it's just as easy. But I think it's just that first time. There's a bit of an extra hurdle, which I think is going to act as a damper. At some point, it's going to be, culturally, it'll be easy to just enter your credit card detail, or more acceptable to enter your credit card details or whatever on your phone. But I think it's, for the time being, Apple's got still the advantage, just because of the way it's set up.
So aside from in-app billing, the other thing that happened this week that was very significant, that we've been talking about for a number of weeks as well, was the fact that RIM finally acknowledged, accepted, embraced, announced the fact that they were actually going to be supporting Android applications on the Playbook. Dun dun dun! Big news or big snooze?
I think so. I think I said this because I remember that it's pretty much what I thought, which is Android apps distributed through BlackBerry App World.
Yep.
So it's so I don't know if how it's gonna impact Playbook. It's interesting because now it changes the dynamic of app development. Well, it could. I mean, if Playbook and RIM's QNX OS and everything are successful. I mean, if you had, say, all the BlackBerries out there running Android, all the Android devices, then suddenly the economics of app development change a lot, because suddenly you can, with Android, target 2/3 of the leading smartphone OS platforms at once, pretty much, with very little extra cost to do the little bit of porting to Playbook and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it could be very significant, could be very good for Android. It's still, you have to see the market success from Playbook and from QNX-based BlackBerry devices for it to make a big difference. But it's interesting. It's an interesting first step. Could make things very, very interesting in a year.
Yeah, it's another. I mean, we talked about it before, but when the potential was announced and debated the reasons why and why not, this would be a good thing for RIM to do. And the actual announcement coming down, showing how many various ways you can write apps for the QNX platform, and we went through a variety of ones: native, Flash, Adobe Air, now Android 2.3, and BlackBerry OS 6 apps running in a VM as well. So having all those options to write applications on the Playbook itself, is it going to make a difference? It'll make a difference for the Playbook because there'll be a higher variety of applications. But of note, it's Android 2.3, not the tablet OS 3.0. So it'll be interesting to see how those apps scale up to the Playbook screen size when they're not designed for large screen devices. It'll be interesting to see how OS 6 apps scale up to the Playbook screen size when they're not designed for those devices. So, I mean, the iPad did a good job of scaling iPhone applications up and making them usable, but effectively they were all using the same APIs, and so it was a fairly easy, simple graphical scale. The BlackBerry OS 6 and the Android 2.3 apps are going to be running in virtual machines, running on top of QNX. I have no doubt the power of QNX operating system will run those applications okay, except probably the very high performance ones won't run very well by being in a VM on top of the hardware. But it's an interesting idea to have that stuff announced now, which is a few weeks ahead of the Playbook's launch, and not available until the summer. And they gave a kind of fairly general time frame, for which recently they've been fairly decent about hitting the time frames they've announced when things would be available. But they've said summer for that. So when you buy the Playbook, you'll only be able to run out of Air Flash apps. The native SDK isn't yet available to developers, so effectively you won't have that option. That's going to go in beta in BlackBerry World in May, and so we assume kind of June time frame when that comes out, and you'll be able to run native stuff. And then later in the summer, you run Android and regular BlackBerry stuff. So it's following this pattern of device manufacturers releasing devices that some people would say aren't complete, and other people would say they're complete enough for most people to use, and we're going to add features later. So instead of updating the hardware, we'll update the software, but we'll let people know what's going to go on. So I think it's important that RIM follow up and hit some of these dates for stuff to continue the reputation of, okay, if we say when you buy this, it's going to have this support, that we actually follow up and deliver on it. Because if they don't deliver on it for 6 months or 8 months, everybody's going to say, well, next time when you say it'll be available, why would I bother buying your device right away instead of waiting until you actually have something available? So it's going to add market for Android apps for sure, but is it going to add a ton of market for it? Well, they're a big manufacturer, but they're not going to sell. They're going to sell they're budgeting for 3 million Playbooks, basically 300,000 units a month is what they're budgeting to manufacture for. So they're looking at saying, okay, we can ship 3.5 million Playbooks over the course of a year. Next 2012 is when the first Blackberries with QNX are going to come out. I would guess this kind of time next year. So we got a year before you have any other devices that are going to have Android 2.3 support on Blackberries. So it's not really going to make a major impact in terms of the reach for Android developers for at least 18 months from now.
Yeah.
So short term, it's going to have an impact for RIM in that they have some more software available for the Playbook, notably not tablet design software, but phone design software. But I'm not sure it's going to have an impact on the Android market in the short or medium term.
No, I don't think that it will. I mean, certainly the proliferation of devices running the Android operating system, it would almost be the opposite. Is that if Android started running BlackBerry apps, BlackBerry OS apps, I think that would have a better impact for RIM than RIM's devices running Android applications, right? You just think.
I think.
Go ahead, Anthony.
But it is a good. It's even if they don't really deliver it. I mean, yeah, there is a credibility issue, but it's removing some fear of people about buying. There's not going to be any apps for Playbook. Why would I buy a Playbook? But I think RIM's got to think. So, ZBoo's developed a couple of apps that are going to be available launch on Playbook. But Air is great to develop in.
Yeah.
So it remains to be seen. So RIM, please start sending us our Playbooks. Remains to be seen the performance of stuff. But if it performs as well as it does on the desktop, then it's a fantastic development environment. If it's the first really great performing Flash supporting mobile device, then it's great. And I think that this might just be assuaging some people's fears. And even if support for Android and BlackBerry apps is crappy, it doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that you've said it, so people have bought it, they buy it, and then at some point they're going to realize, and RIM's hoping this, that there are actually enough really good apps on Playbook. The Playbook experience is actually good enough. And okay, well, now they're supporting Android apps and BlackBerry apps, and it's kind of crappy, but I don't care at this point because I love my Playbook. I bought it. It's got the apps that I want, and I'm happy I bought it.
Let me ask you this question, though. I get an argument for both, and we have to look at it from the other side. Well, one of them, what we're seeing from RIM really clearly is much more transparency than they've ever had before. They're giving, they're telling people what they're doing which is something that is very drastically different from what RIM is traditionally been known for. So there's a market force that has changed that, which is good. On the flip side, Jeff, you said that actually smartphones aren't going to be coming out for another year, really, with the QNX OS. I read a recent announcement from RIM saying that they're very excited about the fact there's their new BBOS that's coming out, I think at the end of this year. So now we're starting to get a little bit fragmented as well from RIM with, is it QNX or is it BBOS or the combination? But if I'm a tablet buyer today, I'm going to wait a year for the Playbook because there are so many things conspiring against it in the app world. It's great to tell me that in 6 months you're going to be able to have Android applications on it, 2.3 that are made for smartphones, not as we talked about in the first story, but not the tablet applications. So I'm going to wait until I see how this shakes out, and I'm going to choose a tablet that actually has that ecosystem ready for me to go today. Because I think that if you look at tablets, you're buying them for a year or 18 months at the most before you're looking to replace them. Maybe the iPad 1 to iPad 2 wasn't a big enough hurdle, but iPad 1 to iPad 3 is going to be a big enough jump to modifications to make it worthwhile. So what do you say about that? Is that I don't believe that the Playbook has an ecosystem yet enough to convince anybody that when you're holding it up next to an iPad or a true Android device, Android tablet, that it warrants being purchased at this point.
Well, take Android 3.
Yeah.
Okay, there's no apps for Android 3.
No, there aren't.
18 apps for Android 3.
Yeah.
So the Motorola Zoom is out. There's 18 apps designed for it. There's more apps designed for Playbook than there are for the Android 3. So if you're holding up the app ecosystem between iPhone or iPad, Android tablets, and Playbook, Playbook is at least second. Okay, it's not first. iPad is first. But there's no way that we can say that the Android tablet market for apps right now is better than Playbook in any way, shape, or form,
Nope.
or that in the short term, it even looks like it will be. Because RIM has done a very good job of incenting developers to produce apps for day one. They're going to have a lot more apps day one available for Playbook, and with the variety of options you have for running apps on the Playbook, whether it be Flash apps that are run on the web, whether it be Adobe Air apps, whether it be native apps that are coming out for it, I think that it's hard to say that the number of apps available for a Playbook ecosystem is not going to be better than what's available for direct tablet apps on Android over the next 6 months. There's just not enough Android tablets coming out to entice people to do that.
I agree with that, but so when you look at the average person looking at buying a tablet, I don't think that the Playbook stands up against anything, and it won't for the next year. Against the iPad is what I'm talking about.
It has
targeting BlackBerry users.
Yes,
They're not,
it has enough features.
Targeting the average user. They're going out and saying, we sold 65 million BlackBerries last year.
Yep.
Okay, that's 65 million people. Mm-hmm. That's who we're targeting with our Playbook market. So our market is 65 million people that we're trying to sell to. We're trying to sell to 5%. We're trying to have a market of 5% of people who bought BlackBerries last year are going to buy Playbooks. And that's including corporate and customer. I don't think that's an unrealistic thing to say.
No, it's not.
That we're going to target 5% of those customers.
But I disagree with you. I think the way that they position the Playbook is that it's a competitor to the iPad. It's not going. They're not targeting their own BlackBerry users. It's a competitor to the iPad. And right now, I've seen the technology. It's beautiful. It doesn't compete with the iPad.
But they have to. RIM can't come out and say, "Oh, well, we don't think we're going to be as good as Apple, but we're going to just try and do a little." That would be freaking clobbered in the markets, right? They have to say they're going to compete with iPad. But Jeff's right. It's BlackBerry users. They've got a couple of features which could be killer features. There's a lot of the fact that you connect to your BlackBerry, but you can connect to your BlackBerry. It's not necessary to have a BlackBerry, but you can get your email through the same corporate, BlackBerry Enterprise server.
Yep.
I think that's pretty killer. I think that combined with, so people love BlackBerries, but most people don't use a lot of apps on their BlackBerry. They use email, BBM, calendar, and then maybe one or two apps. And I think RIM could think that, and it could actually work, that Playbook with just the few killer things that you need for an enterprise. Really good email, really good calendaring and scheduling, maybe a great note-taking app, maybe like a a nice ebook reader and like one or two other things. So some native apps like Maps and a nice browser, which they've got a great browser from what I've seen. That's enough for a really successful corporate tablet.
Yep.
And if it's really solid and it doesn't have all the flakiness of Android tablets that I've seen so far, then could be enough to be not an iPad level of success, because I don't think anyone's going to touch that for a few years, but could be very, very successful.
And you can't put the Playbook beside the iPad and argue that the iPad's technology is better. What you can argue for sure is that the app ecosystem is 100 to 1,000 times better. Absolutely. And that's one of the number one differentiators for when people are looking at devices. But you can't put the technology of the two beside each other and say, oh, the iPad technology is way better. It's actually not. It's got a bigger screen, but otherwise, the RIM device itself, technology-wise, is better. That's not a selling feature for the average consumer. But when you put them beside each other and you say, how are they competing? They're competing in the app market, because that's what people are looking at when they're looking at the tablets. iPad has the brand recognition for iPad and the halo effect around that brand, as well as an app ecosystem. And Playbook has to find some competition with that. Playbook isn't going out and saying, we're going to sell 10 million Playbooks, or RIM's not saying we'll sell 10 million Playbooks. They're saying, we build a platform that developers can develop on in many different ways, so we're providing the most flexibility for developers. You can run apps that already exist out there. How many million Flash apps are there on the web, and they run fine in the browser. They run good. So I'm not sure that if you actually calculate those competitive factors that you're going to say, oh, I can't find 3 million people that would think a Playbook is a better solution for me, because 7-inch tablets are going to be a demographic market that's different from 10-inch tablets. And if you hold it up against every other 7-inch tablet out there, it's way better.
Way better, yes, agreed.
But you know what? I mean, the way you've just described it makes absolutely perfect sense to a developer. Well, selling that to a consumer is a completely different thing. Like from an average person's standpoint, looking at a tablet, they don't care that you can develop in multiple languages. It is. I mean, if the Playbook actually supports all of these platforms, it's going to be the most open platform for developers. You are eventually going to have an insane amount of applications landing on that platform, being able to be played or used on that platform. But for the average consumer, I don't care if it's Flash, I don't care if it's Java, I don't care if it's Android, I don't care if it's anything. I just want my Angry Birds.
Well, how did Samsung sell 1 million Galaxy Tabs in 2 months?
Well, they didn't, because wasn't there like a 30% return rate?
I don't think I heard.
Yeah, I think they weren't reporting actual. There's something they weren't reporting actual.
Yeah.
Okay, let's split in half. Let's say they sold half of that.
Yeah.
500,000 units in 2 months. They did 250,000 units a month. RIM is projecting to sell slightly more than that, based on having an ecosystem already in place and having 65 million BlackBerry customers they can market to. Yep. Samsung didn't have any of that, and they still managed to move 250,000 a month.
No, the first mover advantage, yeah.
Well, fine, but that's a 7-inch tablet, and that's what RIM is shipping, is a 7-inch tablet that's way better than any other 7-inch tablet on the market. If you're looking for a 10-inch tablet, you're not looking at Playbook. If you're looking for a 7-inch tablet, it's way better than anything that's out there in any stretch. Like, you can't pull anything together. They're going to have all the carriers out there. Like, literally every North American carrier is going to say, hey, go buy a Playbook.
Yeah, but I don't want to thrash this out as a massive argument. I mean, this is going to be from all I've seen, this technology is sound. But some of the greatest technologies on the planet have been sound and have never done very well because of the message that goes out there. I don't believe that there's a discrepancy between a 7 and a 10-inch tablet user. I think that they're looking at a tablet and they're going to make a decision about what is the best one for them, whether it's 10 or 7. And the deciding factors aren't going to be what it's supported, how many colors it has, how many buttons it has or doesn't have, what the swiping of the fingers does, whether I can watch a movie and play the game at the same time. It's going to be about the ecosystem and the experience on that device. So there is something to be said. But when you look at, even in a city like Ottawa, a capital town like Ottawa, a government town like Ottawa, when there is a lineup of hundreds of people in front of an Apple store waiting for the iPad 2, You are not going to see that for the BlackBerry Playbook. And that's what they managed to create, a marketing message that will appeal to people who have one of these already, who are going to go out and buy another one a year later for the same amount of money. So that's the challenge that RIM has.
That's the challenge everybody has. So Apple is the monster in the tech. Nobody can come close to Apple as far as consumer marketing, as far as overall product experience. Nobody can, but it doesn't mean that someone else can't be really successful.
No,
so 3 million tablets from RIM.
They're going to do it.
Huge,
I have no doubt.
An enormous amount of money, and that's enormous, and that's fine. They're gonna be hugely successful. They're not. It's almost, you can't say we're not Apple, therefore we're not successful, because come on, this is the company that defines the industry. It sets the standard, right? Yeah. It's if you could be Apple, you'd be Apple, right? It's really.
What's great about what they've done, though, so they've set a ship date, April 19th. The devices are now on sale. Right? You can go to the website and order them,
which is cool. And so this is the one thing that I'm a little bit. I mean, they're setting a ship date, but building. So I believe that they built fantastic hardware. Everything that I've seen and everything that everyone has said, but mass manufacturing it is a big challenge. RIM's good at it, but until I actually see a ton of Playbooks in people's hands in stores, I'm still a little bit, a little bit concerned about the actual manufacturing and distribution of all that hardware.
Okay.
All that great,
yeah.
But it's, you can spend $10,000 and build a great prototype of a tablet, but a bunch of them at $500 a piece is a whole other thing. And this is me saying I still want my Playbook. RIM, send us our Playbooks. I want to play with this thing.
You know what this is? This is an absolute gold mine. Anytime a company like RIM rolls out a new platform, a new device, a new form factor on a new OS, there's a massive developer opportunity here for revenue generation. So, I mean, I'm not crapping all over the Playbook as a product, because I think that this is great. And RIM just came out with their quarterly earnings. They're up 32% year over year, almost $1 billion in profit. And if they sell 3 million tablets or 3.5 million tablets in the next year, what we're talking about is an additional $3 to $4 billion in just hardware revenue, not to mention the money that they're going to be making progressively on their software and their platform. So, it's an incredible business opportunity, and I think that it's. I'm very optimistic about RIM. Just that I think that it's got to and I don't mean this in any way as an offensive thing. They need somebody who understands marketing, and it isn't Balsillie, right? Yeah. That guy doesn't get it. So, and it isn't Lazaridis. It's somebody who comes in there to actually think like they weren't brought up inside of RIM.
Yeah, I think their developer relations has improved a lot, but yeah, I think they need the consumer marketing.
Well, okay, so chalk that up. Tyler Lessard has done an awesome job in developer relations. That guy, he bends over backwards for developers. That's the best move that they made, having in here. And I think that their VP of marketing or their chief marketing officer was just quit or disappeared. And I think that has a lot to do with it, because the things that I'm saying are in direct relation to a bad marketing message. I don't know, but
yes.
So we'll look forward.
They need to improve it. They do.
We'll look forward to the April 19th launch date for the product.
Really looking forward to getting one of these things. I mean, honestly, it just. I'm a techie, so.
It feels so good when you're holding it. It feels comfortable to hold.
Yep.
Much more so than any other tablet I've held.
Yeah. Well, I know, and Bacon, you've spent some time with some of the other tablets.
Yeah. I played with the Zoom for a weekend, and the iPad a number of times, obviously, and the Playbook for various sessions here and there, and it just feels it's more comfortable to hold, and it's way more comfortable to type on. Like I don't have to stretch around. I can just thumb type on it, and I don't know.
It works well.
It feels easier to use, and it feels much more nice to just cart around in terms of weight. Like it weighs so little that you just grab it and go.
Cool.
So what else have we seen this week? I think that one of the biggest other stories outside of RIM was...
This has turned into the RIM show, hasn't it? This is funny.
What's that?
This has turned into the RIM show.
It has, and I'm trying to pull it out, but I'm not sure that this is going to be any less controversial, which is Color. I don't know if we have enough time to cover this, but we have to touch on the story because Color, which is a company that was started, I think, a while back with ex-Lala founders. Who Lala was a streaming music service that was sold to Apple in 2009 for anywhere between 40 and 80 million. It depends. And I think that this is what they're going to be building the streaming iTunes service based on, Lala. So Bill Nguyen, who is the CEO of Lala, has spun out and started something called Color, and they recently launched their app, which is a social photo sharing application for the iPhone and Android, I think, as well. And yeah, Android came out the same day. But that's not the big story here. The big story is that they raised $41 million from some of the biggest venture firms in the Valley. And I think that we all have differing views on this. They've been chastised in the media about this is the moment that we're going to look back on and say that this was, in fact, a mobile bubble. And this investment was the beginning of that, the beginning of the end of the mobile bubble. I have my views on this. What do you like? Is this a story or is this a non-story?
Well, we touched on Angry Birds 3 weeks ago or something with Rovio. Was that about 3 weeks ago? We talked about how they got a fairly obscene valuation as well, and went through some of the arguments there about back and forth. And I think I was on the side of it shows an investment company trying to get in on the ground floor and take a chance when they think there could be potential for a company or a brand to be exploding later on, and wanting to they'd rather put a little extra money in now and take a chance than miss out on the opportunity. And I think there's two ways to look at the Color investment. One way is to look at it in the same manner, and that these VC firms in the Valley are going, we really don't want to miss out on the next Google. We don't want to miss out on the next huge company, and we don't really know where it's going to come from. So we're taking extra chances by putting more money into some of these companies earlier on, hoping that the return is going to be much more massive than waiting until they're able to say, hey, we're now worth $1 billion. Do you want to put 50 million into us now at a 0.5% value of the company? They want to get their money in a lot earlier so that they can really take advantage of some of these astronomical valuations, which, I've said the Twitter and the Facebook and the Zynga valuations, everything are just, totally out of proportion to what long-term the companies are actually going to necessarily be worth. Yeah. I think this is just a case of venture capitalists getting in early, and the advantage that Color had was that they have a founding team with a history, a successful history.
Yeah.
So a lot of this valuation, this money, can be looked at as going, okay, we know these people have been successful before, we'll take a chance. We'll give them money because they've been successful before, we think they have a chance to see success further. So the valuation of the company is really about buying the founders as well.
Yes, I think that's it. I think that most of the story is about that. It's because it's so early. It could only be the team that's worth that much money that pushes it over to that. I mean, they've got an idea that people like, but I do think that industry wide it makes it's so these guys. The one guy started 8 companies and sold half of them for huge amounts of money. But I think it shows that venture capitalists believe that you can build a company largely around a mobile app that can be sold for an enormous amount of money.
Yep.
So a 40 million valuation, and they're probably thinking they're going to, this company is going to be worth several $100 million if they're putting that much money in this early. So somebody's going to buy them. Maybe they're going to generate revenue, but I don't know. But this big an investment that early means that they think that this is going to be a huge company, an enormously valuable company. And the fact that it's in mobility, this means that somebody knows something, somebody thinks they know something. There's some market indicators about that this kind of thing can happen, which is kind of it's actually for entrepreneurs in mobility. It's pretty encouraging. I mean, we have to see if anything actually happens, but when big players start to spend money on stuff, that means there's going to be some success out of it. Even the worst of the dot-com excesses, there's still a few gigantic companies that came out of it, really successful companies that came out of dot-com. And same thing can happen with mobility. Even if this is another bubble, beginning of another bubble, stuff can happen. So I think the signs are positive, but yeah, I think it's totally an investment on the team. They're thinking someone's going to sell a big, valuable mobile company, and this is the team to bet on.
So I think it is a bubble as well, and the difference in the .com bubble was that it was a case of a bubble in the actual public market. So everybody was investing, and everybody was affected by the bubble. Where in this case, the bubble is in the private investment market, and so when this bubble kind of bursts, who will be affected will be the people like Dakota Capital, the people like these Clients Perkins that are putting a lot of money into these mobile companies, and when a bunch of them start failing, they may lose their money, but the general public isn't going to be affected as much because none of these companies are getting to the public markets. They're all being bought before they get to the public market or failing before they get to the public market. So they've never really been tested on the public market to see if people actually believe in these companies or whether just the VCs believe in these companies.
Yeah, fair. One of the there's a what I call the Mendoza line of investing, which is basically there was a ball player Mendoza who batted 200. You know this, right? That it was anybody who bats under 200 in the major leagues falls below the Mendoza line, and that's what investments are. They have 10 for every 10 investments, 2 succeed. Basically, 6 or 4 of them are what they call the living dead. And the rest of them go bankrupt. And investors are big boys, and they put their money in where they think the opportunities lie. But I look at the media panned this deal, right? All the bloggers said this is ridiculous. Why would you pay anybody? I'm going back to Instagram. Why would you pay such of a premium? And there's some great stories on TechCrunch about the mentality and the reasons why it ended up at $41 million as opposed to the 13 that they were looking for. But when you start to think about this team, as you said, they've had some very great success, and I think that the valuation of the team is far greater than the $40 million, just any company's valuation. But if you look at some of the innovation that's happened over the last 5 years that have raised a lot of money, you think about companies like that have taken things in a different direction. Companies like Facebook and Twitter, nobody would have ever considered, a company that allowed you to post things to followers in 140 character bytes or chunks would be worth what they are today. Nobody thought that Facebook could be worth $70 billion. And I look at this as that this is a team that can come up with innovative, that can be innovative. This is a team that they put together that $41 million is going to be a platform building, innovative solution. And if it's not, you're right, the investors are going to lose their money, but it's no big deal because they're investing in the team. And this is, your opening statement just around Rovio and Angry Birds. This is a drastically different type of investment than putting $47 million into a goddamn game company. Because the upside is not there. It's not innovative what they're doing. And it relies on so many different things in order to succeed. Like to see some kind of valuation from one stupid fleeing bird, right?
I mean, we've gone through this before, but I don't think that, yes, there's different reasons the money went in. In the Color case, there's a strong team behind it, and they're looking at doing something that's kind of different that other people aren't doing.
Yep.
Well, or are they? They're a photo sharing application with a twist.
And but who knows where they're going?
Applications out there, right?
Yep.
Facebook is a photo sharing application.
Yep.
So, yes, they are a little bit different from that. But if you look at Angry Birds, it's the same thing. You can say, well, anybody can do it. But everybody didn't do it.
Yeah, I know.
Anybody didn't invent Mickey Mouse. Anybody didn't invent the Marvel comic characters, right? So, like, with Stan Lee, you could have said the same thing when he started his stuff. Well, he's only got one character. Why do I think he can do it again? Well, he did it once, and the people who do it 10 times did it at least once. So if you're going to put your money in somewhere, putting it somewhere where someone has actually had success once is a much higher chance of probability than someone who hasn't had success yet. So in both cases, it's investors going, there could be a future path for success. One company has had success with a game. There looks like a brand building from that. Maybe I see something in there that could explode in the future. In the other case, it's a team that has had success in other companies in the past. I see something there that looks like it could explode in the future. So in both cases, it's putting money in early, hoping to take advantage of hugely inflated valuations later on, but just totally different industries and totally different companies.
Yeah, and I don't want to bring this up, and I don't want to continue down this path. All I know is that the jury's still out on both of those guys. I put my bet on Bill and his team at Color for long-term success, and I'll put a wager down. I don't know what it would be. a virtual wager on the fact that I'd see something of greater value out of color long term than
because I think that Angry Birds is the better bet. I think Rovio is the better bet.
There you go. Somebody to take my bet.
I take that bet.
I don't know what it is, but it's got to be someone big.
See what happens. 5 years from now, we'll see which one's more successful.
I think hunt you down.
That bet as well.
So I kind of agree with Jeff, but yeah, I think Rovio is a better bet. Look, they've got 3 apps in the top 10 on both iPad and iPhone. They've got a brand. Everyone knows Angry Birds. It's gone beyond just the iOS.
Yep.
I think it's a very different kind of investment. I agree with Jeff, but I think it's a safe investment. It's just, well, look, you guys already have success. You just need to make it bigger.
So there you heard it right here on episode number 10. There's a big divide. I think you're ganging up on me. It's 2 against 1. But this is a virtual wager right now. We're going to see, and we'll come back here in 5 years, boys, and we're going to see who's still standing at that point. And if I'm actually wearing an Angry Bird shirt, or my kids have gone out for Halloween as one of the Angry Birds, I will eat crow in front of the 9 people that listen to this show. I definitely will.
Oh, we might be up to like 15 by that point.
Well, here's hoping. Well, that's the week. I think that those are the stories that have been hammered this week, and I think that adding a little bit more context to those stories is very important. Limiting the number of stories that we cover, I think, is very important as well. Just simply to get a little bit deeper into this, because it's where it's the insight from you guys that is very valuable on the stories that are dominating the mobile space. And as we always ask, if there's any feedback from the things that we're saying, agree or disagree, you want to get in on this bet, this is the time to start to reach out to us and let me know. Are you on the side of Rovio or are you on the side of color? Send email to untether@gmail.com, or wherever you see this, whether it's at the Suave Hog, whether it's at untether.tv, or wherever you see this podcast, leave a comment and say, listen, are you with color or are you with Angry Birds? And we'll tally this up and make sure that we have an ongoing battle here. Every week we'll talk about this.
Every week.
No, guys, I'm spent. Enough arguing for the day. Anthony, where can we find you?
So zeebu.com. That's my company. ZEEBU or ZEEBU for all you Americans. The half of our audience it is.
Yes.
And thinkingblackberry.com is my blog.
What about you, Bacon?
You can get me at bacononthego.com. I actually registered a domain name for it finally. So,
wow.
You can go straight there, bacononthego, no spaces.com, go to my blog, and you can see this. I always repost this podcast there along with various other articles I write, probably about 1 a week I tend to get to. So,
are you going to plug BitHeads, your employer?
All right, fine. Oh yeah, I'm speaking this week. That's right, I forgot about that. I'm speaking on Wednesday in Toronto. If you're in Toronto, mobileappmadness.com. I'm talking there so you can get my insights in person rather than in this virtual podcast format. So I'm sure that's extremely valuable to all of those Torontonians that are around and listening to this podcast.
And you'll be found at opening day at Rogers Centre watching the Toronto Blue Jays play some team.
I will be about 7 rows behind the Minnesota Twins visitor dugout in the Rogers Centre on Friday night and on Saturday afternoon as well. So
he'll be the guy in his shorts without a shirt, painted blue.
No.
Right.
With the
I'll be the one typing away on my iPhone and my BlackBerry while I'm watching the game.
Exactly.
Seriously, get BitHeads to sponsor your trip by painting the BitHeads logo on your chest, just on the chance to get in the jumbotron.
Hey, I don't pay for my own travel. I'm just telling you. This is
nice
vacation.
You get the tickets though.
Well, so if you can't make it out to see Jeff, he'll be here next week. Next Sunday we'll be doing this again to talk about the week that was. We'll hear a recap from his Toronto adventures. We'll also, I'm sure, have a number of great stories in the mobile industry because things are heating up. And as Anthony said, if this investment in color is any indication of the things to come, it's going to be great for entrepreneurs. I say take the cash while you can. That's all I say. All right. And for you guys who are still watching or still listening to this, we really appreciate it. Thank you for making it this far. Feedback, comments are always appreciated and welcomed so far away. Anthony, Bacon, till next week, I'll see you then.